Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the day 1 update for my Lightning Strike Warden. Now, as I said in my previous League Starter videos, I was quite concerned about how Warden would actually perform, especially how the freeze node would be, how the unbound would be with irregular damage uptime, how Tinctures would perform, how Shock would perform, and I gotta say, most of the things were surprisingly positive. The positives definitely outweigh the negatives. There's one negative, which we're going to talk about, which I did not expect, but everything else is beyond expectations. On top of that, Lightning Strike, in whatever form you want to play it, is definitely back. It feels incredibly fresh. I don't even have the +2 strikes from the gloves yet. I don't even have +1 strikes. I just have the one from the passive tree, and it already feels like home. However, as always, I've gathered quite a bit of information here about what I've been playing, and basically the most asked questions we're going to put into this video. I'm basically going to start out with stuff that you guys were asking, stuff that people had problems with, and I'm going to put all of that into like a huge topic of points that I'm basically going to rattle down, and after that I'm going to go over my gear and talk about my decisions. So first up, we're going to start with the campaign stuff. Bark skin is completely ridiculous during campaign. I've never played with anything like this before. It's like having 3 or 4 determinations on at the same time, or at least that's how I imagine it to be. Once you put this on, and just so you know, you have to put it on. It's a reservation. I've literally had 2 people who said bark skin does nothing, and they did not know it wasn't. It is a reservation. You actually activate it. Once you have that, it is ridiculous. Now, you still have to build resistances because it doesn't do anything against elemental damage. But when it comes to any sort of physical hits, it will basically carry you to maps. Then let's talk about the freeze node, which I said you should take second, which is Oath of Winter. When I say bark skin is broken early, right? It's not all that great later. It's okay. It's worth it for the 10% reservation. But it will be respect once we go into the tincture stuff. More on that later. Oath of Winter is exactly the other way around, and that's what we actually want, right? It is early game. It's noticeable, especially if you have Herald of Ice on. You can enjoy explosions during the campaign. It's kind of nice, right? And it does something. If you have the cold damage to back it up, that's important. You need to actually deal the cold damage, but because you can't really be picky during campaign. But this becomes so goddamn ridiculous. I don't know if you saw it in the intro. There is monsters that just literally cannot move. Once they're frozen once, they will never move again. And I don't exactly know what's wrong. I don't know if there's maybe a bug, because these freezes are sometimes not 2 seconds. And as far as I understand this, it says enemies frozen for at least 2 seconds. Now, if the Hoarfrost gets you from 0.3 to 2, I don't understand how that would be higher than 2, right? Because that's the baseline. I don't think, well, either way, I have no clue, but sometimes you just freeze for 4 seconds. It comes out of the freeze, and a tiny fraction of a second later, it's frozen again. It does like this, and it's frozen again. And it just never goes out of freeze. Certain bosses just do not ever recover from this. Obviously, we'll have to test this later against bigger bosses. So far, I've had big essences and map bosses and stuff like that. But yeah, this node is completely crazy, and if you're playing Warden and you're not including this, you are trolling. And then I'm just gonna round this up. Avatar of the Wild is very strong, and there's 2 reasons for that. The first one is it's up when you need damage, and it is a lot of damage. At first, I thought the delay is kind of annoying, and especially when you run labs for your lightning strikes and stuff like that, it doesn't really do anything because you can't use a Izaro. But trust me, once you get into maps, you will see how strong this is, because maps all revolve around certain encounters, right, where all of a sudden you need a spike in damage. So Avatar of the Wild, very strong, thumbs up, about as strong as I expected it to be. This node here has been big shit so far. Now, we knew before the league started that in order to get a 2% shock, you need to deal as much damage as usually a 5% shock would deal. And I've looked at that in PoEDB with certain numbers, and it just doesn't really add up. And I think what's happening is it's because PoB takes the average of your damage, right? But think about it this way. Let's say, for example, the lightning roll here, 15 to 271. Well, on PoB, you're going to see the average, and it's going to look like you're always going to shock for 5%. But in reality, half of the time, you're maybe shocking for 10%, and half of the time, you're shocking for 1%. But it doesn't matter whether you shock for 5 or 10%. Those are always the same shock, right? But the small ones don't get registered at all, because if it's under 2%, you don't get anything. So I feel like this is a node that might be good in endgame, But I don't know, especially after seeing how strong tinctures are. More on that in a second. I'm not sure I'm ever going to include this. And most likely what I will be doing is Oath of Winter plus Avatar plus the 2 tincture notes. But let's move on. A lot of people have said that after campaign, they felt a fall off from Rain of Arrows to going into Lightning Strike. And that is quite normal. Rain of Arrows is an incredibly strong skill, even into yellow maps. You can even go Alley Hit of Spectrum. Welcome to bows, right? However, Lightning Strike should not feel as bad as some people have told me. And then I look at their POBs and I'm like, oh, what is this going to be? And they have claws that are not very good. Now, you have farmed through the campaign. You probably un-ID'd like 40 rare bows, and you have gotten some kind of really good bow that you're really proud of. Do you really think that you're going to go to Lightning Strike and then, I don't know, the first claw you find or something that has like a tiny bit of damage has garbage attack speed is going to compare to that? Of course not. You need to prepare a claw. Now, what that claw looks like depends on your budget, obviously. After campaign, you might have a few chaos left over. So what you're mainly looking for is 2 of these and 2 of these. Now, if you can, you want cold. Cold is basically mandatory, actually, not if you can. And then lightning and fire are kind of interchangeable. Lightning is slightly better than fire, and you want high amounts, right? For example, this claw looks incredible, right? Like if you just look at the first 3 lines, you're like, oh, triple LE damage. But then you realize that's a tier 5 fire damage, and a tier 2 lightning damage is more than double of what that gives. So if I just had an upgrade from tier 2 to tier 1, it would almost be as much as not having that fire at all. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. You have to actually check how much damage it deals. And I guess another big thing, which I'm going to tell you right now, is on the runesmithing table, if you get these runes, you can actually put another implicit on there. Actually, enchant, right? Not implicit, but you can put an enchant on there. And if you get flat lightning or fire or whatever you have the runes for, it costs like 8 of one of these runes. You get these runes from shipments, by the way, mostly as far as I know. Over here, this kind of stuff is you just have to read the stuff. You can kind of progress your city. Maybe I'll make a video about it later, but it's mostly self-explanatory. Now, how do you get a claw? The first one is the RNG route. If you have absolutely no money, but you have a little bit of gold lying around, you can go to the black market right here. Now, in order to get the black market, you have to upgrade the town a few times. So if you didn't do the league mechanic during the campaign, like I told you, you're screwed. You go to the black market and you see you can get a random claw. For me, this costs a lot, but at lower levels, it costs a lot less. And then you just have to roll for it and hope that you get a good claw. The second option is obviously that you already found a claw during campaign because you thought ahead. You're like, okay, I'm going to play Lightning Strike. And the third way is you buy a fracture. Now, I have a search right here that I'll link down in the description. Cold, fire, lightning damage, attack speed, crit. If you get either of these, you definitely want to look out for what kind of base it is. You want as high attack speed as possible. 1.5, fine. 1.6, fine. 1.3, big shit. Very bad. Don't get baited by, for example, certain bases that already have attack speed roll, and it looks like they have more than 1.3. Better look at PoE Wiki before you do that. 1.5, 1.6 attack speed, high crit. That's what you're looking for. The best are the flat damage ones. The crits are probably the worst, but you have to take what you can get. The attack speed is pretty solid. And then make sure that this is also a lot. You can also sort it by this. You just click on this, for example, and then the one with the highest fire damage is going to show up. The difference between the highest and the lowest is going to be like double. So that's like straight up double damage. That is how important these mods are. And after you bought that fracture, you have to buy yourself an essence. Now, you can craft with 3 different essences. Essence of Hatred, Essence of Anger, which would be here, and then also Essence of Wrath. These are the ones that give you flat damage. So what happens is, we just got one of these mods with a fracture, which cannot go away, so we eliminated one of them. Then the Essence is going to apply the second, and then you also have a craft at the end, so you have a third one. So all you have to do with one of these essences is hit a single extra mod, and it's a decent claw. You don't need all of these 5. 4 is completely enough. That is all you need to get to like end of yellow maps. Now, I don't know what your budget is at this point. It really depends on how much you farmed in lab, but the deafenings are right now like 5 chaos or something. I had a really shitty claw until I got to red maps. Right now I have this one, which is also really bad, mainly because I have very low crit. Now, another thing you could definitely do, right, is you can also just search for claw right here, and then just type in EDPS if you want to, right? Like you put like 350 or something, search for it, and you're gonna get like an okay claw. These are usually trash, but sometimes you find some treasure in here. In general, look out for good implicit, good base type. Make sure you have a craft open. For example, if it has no attack speed and there's no suffix open, it's trash, right? So yeah, maybe you can find a lucky pick in here. But yeah, that is the biggest mistake I've seen people make. It's like attack builds, your weapon is everything. If you go from really good bow that you found during campaign to garbage claw, it's going to have garbage outputs. That just is what it is. And upgrade your claw once you have money. Claw is always something you want to be on the lookout for to upgrade. Just get better and better. The second biggest mistake I've seen, Lightning Strike needs levels to be good. If you haven't seen my leveling video where I go over, you have to kind of farm lab to get 20 quality, while Lightning Strike, I got it in around about an hour. Some people got it in 3 hours. Some people got it on the first try. It kind of is what it is, right? You can also buy quality and then corrupt those. If you found, for example, if you found like an Ice Nova Frostbolt on your lab run, right? You can just sell that and literally buy the quality already. Then you don't have to run over and over and try the Vol. It is what it is. You can also delay your Vol Lightning Strike and just go with a 20% quality one. It's a lot easier to farm in Uber Lab, although then you have to have more gear to do that. Whatever. Lightning Strike needs levels. This is important. You can't just go ahead and do a level 1 Lightning Strike. And I know where this mistake comes from, because attack skills didn't used to really scale well with levels. Now, I want you to look at this. If you haven't looked at the patch notes, the difference between a level 20, 456 damage effectiveness, a level 1, 198, you're dealing almost a third of the damage of a level. It's almost like spells. It's not as crazy as spells, but it is a crazy difference. If you forgot to level Lightning Strikes, okay, you're kind of screwed, but you can still go to Act 1 vendor. You don't have to go to Lily and buy level 1s. You go to the Act 1 vendor, to Nessa, and you buy Lightning Strikes here. They're down here, right? And you buy them, and they're at least level 12. And then, I don't know, in some area, you farm it up to at least level 16, and you have an okay Lightning Strike. But yeah, don't forget that. Also, before you reroll, get yourself a Tincture on Respec. These are super cheap. We're talking an Alch to a Chaos, and then you can roll them yourself with alterations. The two mods you want are Penetration or Attack Speed, although Attack Speed will make your build feel so much better. Now, for Tinctures, you just want to press them basically once, right? You press them once, and then your mana is going to degen. Actually, this only works in maps, so let's, or in certain areas. So let's quickly go here. Leech is basically going to carry you. So while you're in combat, this is going to be up permanently. You will see the mana degenning here quite a bit in a second. Now, for me, it's a little bit later because I actually have clarity on, but you can see, I mean, it's stacking up, it's stacking up, it's stacking up. At some point, it falls off, and then you have a cooldown, and after that, it comes back up. And if you're mana leeching in between, you sometimes have it up for like 20 seconds. I got this Tincture at like level 70, and it literally doubled my damage, or even more. It is like, if you're not using a Tincture, a prismatic Tincture that gives you elemental damage with weapons, you're missing out. Once again, it is huge. Next point, do not run Grim Sorrows, because these convert 100% of your fizz to cold, which sounds nice. It doesn't really do much. You shouldn't have much physical damage anyways. And what you're doing is you are completely negating everything these nodes here do. It's a lot of crit you're losing. You cannot bleed if you deal no fizz. And then one more, I guess I'm going to chime in, that I've seen mistake people do is delaying spell suppression until way later, right? Like delaying armor, delaying Dawnbreaker. The problem is if you're too squishy, you cannot level, and then you don't gain power. A lot of your power comes from your passive points. You get life while leveling up. You get mana, which makes your tinctures easier, or not easier, but it makes your mana leech a little bit more proficient. So yeah, you just have to get spell suppression. At some point, I just started getting these around about level 80 or something, whenever it was in higher yellow maps. And then start looking out for Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker is very cheap. It drops from normal Searing Exarch. Everybody's doing Searing Exarch. I bought this perfectly fizz damage taken with okay block for like 25 chaos. And you can buy a, I don't know, 18-17% roll for around about 5 chaos. And then the rest, right? Armor and Determination is another one. I'm running Determ right here, as I told you, with Perseverance. It is very strong. The Fortify isn't perfect, but when it's up, which is while mapping, you also get Onslaught, which makes your build feel better. You get a ton of increased attack damage. You get life, you get cold res, you get the whole package. It's just a very, very strong package. And yeah, Determ is just incredible. What can I say? It is going to carry you. You have to understand that Bark Skin, and this is, I think a lot of people are becoming complacent because they're so tanky during campaign, and then it falls off like a brick, is this gives you flat damage reduction. If you have armor that mitigates before Bark Skin, your flat damage reduction becomes better again. So you have to adjust. Enemies do more and more damage, so you have to have more and more damage reduction. And then I guess also a lot of people were asking about strength. I have this in each of my POBs, so maybe you haven't looked yet, but there's 2 ways to get strength for this build. The first one is Inertia, which is the threshold jewel around here that converts dexterity to strength. And then there's Lethal Pride, a small trick. So I bought this Lethal Pride for 50 chaos once I had the chaos for it. But a small trick right here is if you want to know what these do, you can actually do that. So for example, let's go here, Lethal Pride. Now, you're not going to search for exactly the Lethal Pride you want. There's like 72 up and there's tens of thousands of versions, right? No. What you do is you're like, oh, this is 50 chaos. Let's see. So you can go here, item text copied. You go Control V right here in the items, and it's going to pop up exactly the number. You put it where you want it to do it, and now you can hover over everything you have. And if you, before import your character, you can even exactly see how many stats it gives you, right? You hover over, plus 20 strength, burning damage, sucks, stun duration, sucks, right? You're like, and you check all your nodes, and even if it's bad, it still gives you a ton of strength, and it's still better than Inertia. So that's just something you can check out. Maybe check out a few, and you take the one that sucks the least. But either way, you want one of those jewels before red maps, basically. One of these jewels. This could be too expensive before red maps, unless you get lucky. But Inertia is totally fine. And another thing, don't miss out on quality. Quality got increased this league, improved this league. It's now a more multiplier for everything. So you want quality on your items. My items aren't perfect, but it is very important that you use armor scraps, and you now need less of them. So overall, you're going to be fine. If you don't have them, I bought like, I don't know, 80 for 10 chaos. But if you can't, you probably picked up a lot of them. This can be the difference between you taking 20% or 30% more damage and taking more hits between evasion and armor on all of your gear combined. Actually, one thing that I've struggled with, and a lot of my viewers have struggled with, is for some reason you get frozen a lot in this patch. And I couldn't first figure out why it was. But there are actually, I don't know if it's just rares or also magic packs that reflect ailments back to you. So what happens is you're Warden, you're freezing everything, you're gonna get caught. So usually you would just wait until you get Soul of the Branking for the freeze immune, and later you're gonna get ailment immune with boots anyways. I would highly recommend, if you're getting into maps, to pick up Arctic Armor plus Herald of Ice, right? Those are two 25% auras instead of whatever other aura you're using. And then whenever you're doing the armor transition, now you have, most likely at that point, you have Soul of the Branking, which is basically Tanner, which I think is Coral Ruins. I'm pretty sure, yeah. So if you complete Coral Ruins with the Divine Vessel, you get the freeze immune. But until then, Arctic Armor, big up. Now then we have Guardian's Blessing. This one is kinda dead as of now, because the raise specters, the specters that we would raise that would come up over and over and over again, apparently have a cooldown between death where it's not up for 4 seconds. So I'm not sure yet if it's completely worth. Maybe we put in like a Hydrosphere tornado setup here. I'm not 100% sure yet. So I also have open sockets as of right now. This is something we'll have to see. This is a nerf to almost everybody, so it is what it is. The other thing is, and I don't really have an anoint yet, I will not be going for static blows because I will be respecking out of the shock nodes. I think they are not very good, so I won't be going for all that jazz at all. When it comes to anoints, I was thinking about Nature's Concoction, but I don't think it's as good as I thought, because it isn't up during the linger. It is only up while the tincture is up, so it doesn't have great uptime. In terms of what I'm going to take is, if I have a good Lethal Pride where there's a good Heartseeker effect, I could, for example, take Heartseeker. You could also take Claws of the Falcon, although this one costs a golden oil. I actually don't know what Heartseeker... Yeah, Heartseeker is pretty cheap. It's like double red and a teal. In general, I will look out for it. I'm not 100% sure yet. Let's talk about something important, though. The Ascendancy nodes that I'll be going forward. The Shock node has underperformed pretty hard so far. So much so that I went from Added Lightning to Added Cold. I actually bought an Awakened Added Cold, which is super cheap. I think it was like 20 chaos whenever I bought it, and the Added Lightnings were like out of this world. So this gives me better freezes. It takes away from the shocks, but it gives you way, way, way better freezes. which is already a good payoff. But shock just didn't really do much. Whereas usually I would shock for like 10 to 12% just with a single hit. Now I would always only shock for 2, and it would ramp up to like 12, 20, maybe 25. It wasn't very good. I don't know what to say. Maybe this is a really good node in endgame, but as of right now, I don't really feel it. As well as that, I really want to go Tinctures. Tinctures are, I think, completely busted. And I think that I will respec Mother's Teachings and Oath of Spring into them. I guess you guys didn't know, on Craft of Exile, there are the Tincture mods that have been basically data mined. And there are different bases. The 3 bases I'm looking at is the one I'm currently using, which is the Prismatic Tincture. Then there's also Tincture that gives you up to 150% crit chance. And just so you know, these are the base level things. So you could get increased effect on there. You could get more effect from the quality. You could get increased effect from the passive tree, quite a bit actually. So we're talking not 100 or 106% increased damage. We're talking around about 200. Also, don't forget that the small nodes here and here also give 10% effect. Now, the attack speed they showed us in the trailer was, I think, 17%. Turns out you can get up to 29% attack speed. When everything, the dust is settled, this will be around about 70%. It is mind-blowing, and it makes the build just feel so much better. So that's what we're going to go for. And on the second one, we're going to go for the crit one or the rage one. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go for crit, though. Maybe rage in endgame. And we're going to go for pen. So pen we thought would only go to like 15 because that's what they showed us, but it actually goes to 19. So we're going to get, I don't know, like a few 100% crit, a few 100% increased damage, 70% attack speed, and straight up like 50 pen. Now this I'll have to make an update on. I'm just throwing this video out there right after playing, right after stream, right? I didn't do the math yet. I'll present it to you once I actually respec into it. But just so you know, if you haven't done Uber Lab yet and you want to save yourself the hassle, you can probably already go into Enduring Suffusion. This node is very good. Basically, after your cooldown is over, what this basically means is you will get 6 seconds while the cooldown is up, right? You cannot forgo the cooldown. The cooldown will always be there, but you can make it so that you almost have 100% uptime. And it also means you don't have to press it as often. In general, this node, even on one tincture, is already better than this. The reason I'm not using it right now is because I'm literally broke because I just upgraded quite a few pieces. I'm broke. I don't even have the regrets for it. I still have to respec Oak on day 1 because it was bugged and I had to take Oak instead of Valera. It's a little bit of a shit show, but just so you know. Let's look at my gear real quick. Dagger is quite good. Don't forget the life per hit implicit. It will carry you quite hard. I would love to have some crit on there. It makes the freezes a little bit worse, but everything's still perma-frozen all the time. This helmet is absolute garbage, self-found garbage. I don't even have a craft on it. I'm kind of trolling. I bought this Dawnbreaker right here for 25 or 28 chaos or something. Definitely don't forget the quality. These boots, important is you don't need movement speed on your boots. The way that looting now works and whirling blades not scaling with movement speed, I felt very confident without it. But if you can't, you can't. These boots, I think, cost me literally 3 chaos. I'm not trolling you. If you wanted these with movement speed, you would be paying 20 upwards. Perseverance, only use this once you already have your armor up. You would want to have Determination. You want to have Dawnbreaker. And you also need a Granite Flask right here. So be sure to do that. I'm also automating some of them. I don't have all the Instilling Orbs yet. In terms of gloves, these are garbage. I bought them for, I think, 2 chaos. They are what they are. This is self-found. I will replace this with Chaos Res. If you check right now, my only deaths right now are coming from Chaos damage. I'm on minus 60 Chaos Res, which is very, very bad. But that's about it for my gear. Have a Jade Flask, a Granite Flask, and a Diamond Flask. Now, increased evasion rating, increased armor rating. It doesn't matter where it is, but it's very strong. You can also get reduced effect of curses. And as for my passive tree, it's literally the same that I was already talking about. So yeah, what I'm doing right here is I'm actually pathing up to this jewel right now. I'm probably gonna spec out of the claw nodes. I'm gonna connect here, and then I'm slowly but surely here at the tincture nodes, and I'm actually gonna respec. I just realized this actually has a decent mod, 20% armor. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm slowly but surely going to respec into 2 tinctures. And I guess that's about it for the build in terms of the updates to the tincture version. That's gonna come either tomorrow or somewhere tomorrow, day after-ish. It might be a day 2, day 3-ish update. I'll try to get it out as soon as possible, but also have to kind of play the game to know stuff. And I'm also going to talk some stuff about the Lee mechanic. Right now, I'm not too familiar with it, but there's a lot of stuff out on Reddit, a lot of tips and tricks that I would highly encourage you to look at. And yeah, that's about all I got. See you guys tomorrow or day after or something. And since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.